Thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. It's real. Those words will never escape your mind in Driveclub, but I mean specifically, this is real. Driveclub doesn't cheat for its establishing shots, using NASA's data, the same data that accurately maps stars into the skybox. The environment is modeled up to a draw distance of 200 kilometers beyond the track. The curvature of the Earth was accounted for, and all for the sake of the sky. Lightning can now strike at wildly variable distances, and the sun can be accurately diffused by 3D volumetric clouds 100 miles away. The biggest cast the deepest shadows, the darkest cast the dourest mood. The fastest are driven by the same wind speed that influences vegetation, cables, debris, and water rippling. But you just wait until the sky gets angry. I'm going to make a lot of bold claims in this video that Driveclub is one of the most underrated racing games of all time. That there's never been a better blend of arcade racing and simulation. That it is among Sony's masterpieces, and when they've been justified, will solve its murder. This was Driveclub when it was alive. Driveclub has tracks, but it is not a track racer. It's a someplace wonderful racer. The frigid winter and beastly mountains of Norway play a perfect contrast to the arboreal paradise in Japan. Wonderfully warm colours in India amongst trees, fields and villages complements the vast stretches of the Scottish Highlands, as the Olympian ravines in Canada do for the sun-baked Martian beauty of Chile. The greatest hits album of planet Earth play backdrop to our greatest technological triumphs in what defines Driveclub's art style, a contrast of natural and mechanical beauty. It's astounding that Pagani's proprietary screwheads and symmetrical carbon fiber weave were translated into the game, but I've never seen the spectacle of a track so breathtaking it literally lost me the race. It turns out the titanic wall of a mountain consuming your entire view is quite distracting, like a glistening rainbow if the weather is just right, or the aurora lighting the northern sky in Scotland, Norway or Canada. Wherever you go, the wildlife is faithful, like the properties of the local streetlights, the trees, the bushes, the flowers and moss. Even the mud itself, which dampens with the leaves and roads according to elevation, temperature and the severity of the rain. In 2014, this was the most realistic portrayal of rain and snow in any game, ever. In 2015, they called it a major inspiration for The Witcher 3. Driveclub doesn't cheat. As I drive forward, the angle of snowfall reacts realistically. When each flake crashes into the windscreen, the wipers struggle as snow melts into thicker clumps than rain. When I move, droplets slip across the screen according to my turning force and speed, sliding over the crests and valleys created by 260,000 polygons. Every sinew, every fiber and indentation of the body is there in vivid beauty. And that's the impressive thing. This is Driveclub, so you can be as descriptive as you like. You're not far from just being factual. The same engineering data used to replicate cars in factory was used for Driveclub's 7-month production pipeline, from the shell to the beating heart within. Acceleration, top speed, weight distribution and braking details from manufacturers were plugged into Driveclub's physics, allowing a personality to shine. And in a hypercar, A personality can be so pronounced, it's more like a playstyle. The P1's kinetic energy redispersal system is charged by braking and spent when you need the speed. Its DRS flaps sacrifice handling for acceleration. If you master the McLaren, it's unstoppable. Where the Venom GT channels its 1,000 galloping horses into a missile, the Agera R is more of an aeroplane without the wings. Where the Savage Rivale is a cumbersome piece of shit that sticks its ass out if you so much as look at it. Much like my mate's mother, the Koenigsegg 1-to-1 is lighter than its own shadow, but has more power than God. It'll dominate as soon as you realize you should never press the accelerator. Sometimes it was the manufacturers who asked Driveclub for help. Because the most accurate description I can give of the sounds is that they are the most accurate descriptions that could be given of these sounds. At the time of recording, some were the best in the world. Mercedes and BMW use Evolution's recordings in their own libraries, which makes it difficult to pass judgment. To not like these car sounds is to not like the way these cars sound. That's why Evolution turned the music off by default. It's hard to say it was worth it.
As you can see, I've done absolutely nothing to the outside of my car, and that's because I've spent my whole 300 quid on exactly what a 17-year-old wants. A banging stereo for me tunes.
Hybrid's score is 5 tracks long, remixed by over 20 DJs into what was then, and is to this day, my favourite soundtrack in racing. Interspersed amongst the boom crashes of synthetic wub-dubs and Charlotte James asking how fast you want to go for the 98 millionth time is simple elegance. Hybrid perfectly captures Driveclub's hybrid of mechanical and natural beauty. You can picture a car gliding seamlessly through mountain roads in only listening to it. Wouldn't you say the picture kinda looks like Forza Horizon? Another communion of cosmos and engine fire, a song of ice and tires. 2 games unified by this contrast. Interesting, because they have something else in common too. Both peddle pure fantasy, yet hesitate to sacrifice believability. Horizon's physics are not realistic, so why not go all out? You would never see a track car skipping across the sand crests of a desert. You would never see a LaFerrari blitzing through a blizzard in the dark. Because it's insane, but also because it's impossible. What's the Uncanny Valley equivalent for when a game is just a little more appealing than real life? That's not a rhetorical question. The answer is hyperrealism. Hyperrealism is the simulation of something that never really existed, as if it does. What is real and what is fiction are seamlessly blended, leaving no clear distinction where one ends and the other begins. An airbrushed body is hyperreality, a drink flavored with a berry that doesn't exist. Batman and Catwoman in Arkham, this face. Apply it to sex, and you get... It preys upon the consumer, using their desire for actual reality. But Driveclub is no advertisement. Do you desire this reality? I can't speak for everyone, but the trend is screaming yes. Because if all you ever wanted was gamified arcade fun, Horizon wouldn't have sold a single copy, and Need for Speed would be on top of the world. We desire fantasy and believability at the same time. Driveclub is not unique for providing it. It's not unique for being hyper-real. It's unique for being the greatest incarnation of that desire, of hyper-reality in racing there has ever been. I've proven the prowess of its presentation. Now let me show you how in visuals and handling, it seamlessly combines its reality with fantasy to create an experience that is shockingly visceral, unfailingly spectacular, and utterly fun. Photorealism is like the speed of light. The closer you get, the harder it gets to get any closer. Driveclub is a testament to that. Only magic could free it from the constraints of 2013. Water slides into the terrain. Foliage fails to mesh with the ground. Textures lack clarity. Character models lack a lot more than that. Each hidden where you're least likely to notice. Even Driveclub can't trick you all the time. It is often worse than reality, but the remarkable thing is, sometimes it's better. The world doesn't actually look like this. Terrain that entered life as NASA's data saw in-house tweaks and perfections to enhance its natural beauty, like a model on the cover of Vogue. Where environments were made more appealing, individual pockets of splendor are packed tightly together so you always have something to see as you drive by in your hyper-real car. You'll see, the driving itself is the best example of them all. Weaving a Koenigsegg through the bends of a Nordic hill climb is exactly the mechanical field of motorsport, not Horizon. Driveclub has no concern for dodging traffic, shortcuts, and car-to-car combat. If you aren't thinking about the racing line, if you pay no attention to exactly when to brake, what you are doing is losing. So it's a sim. No, Driveclub is not concerned with realism either. Drifting is not incentivized as it is in arcade, but it is easy. Damage is cosmetic, because its place on the simcade spectrum cannot communicate the true nature of its compromise. Where Horizon makes sweeping concessions in realism for the sake of accessibility, variance, and spectacle, yet makes drifting curiously tough, Driveclub is an expertly refined idealization of reality. It takes our world, preserves what makes a game fun, and strips away only what doesn't. Take drafting. To draft is to enter another moving object slipstream. Here, air resistance is reduced. In reality, the effect is small. But in Driveclub, it is exaggerated to become a worthwhile strategy from the get-go, raising the depth of the average encounter. Now it's fun. Where some struggle to communicate the feeling of the road under your wheels, where they resort to tricks to create their sense of speed, Driveclub is realistic. Every indentation of the tarmac affects you, and that effect becomes fear if you're going fast enough. Precise control is lost, a dip in the road shudders the car off course without immediate correction. How fast do I want to go? Yeah, not this fast, not this fast! But what would be suicidal in a true sim can be experienced as an adrenaline rush in Driveclub, because the punishment for failure is light. Too much and I'd never risk it. Too little and how could I feel the same tension? In a game whose mechanical field is racing lines and braking times, tracks are the level design. Tracks are the challenge. It is a light punishment for failure that allows Driveclub to beautifully weave demanding tarmac, as if it were designed to test you without having every misstep end in a restart. Too much and I'd get frustrated. Too little and tough tracks would mean nothing. Too little, and the game would be boring. Without a light punishment for failure, how else could I indulge utter mania? Hypercars, in the dark, in the wet, in a blizzard, I can't see shit. It's ridiculous. It's also insanely fun. More believable than Horizon's track cars in a desert, and also a vastly more impactful fantasization. The blend is stronger and more seamless. It gets better. You want to see real tension? Or do you want to see how a monstrous thunderstorm can directly influence gameplay by lighting the sky for a split second before disappearing and leaving you alone in the dark? Horizon 4 is one of the greatest racing games ever made. Its seasons are astounding, and stood next to the gods that make Driveclub's weather, it feels like child's play. If iRacing is a photorealistic capture, then Driveclub is the world painted as the artist dreams it would be. Hyper-reality. Everything that makes our world fun is preserved. Everything that does not is conceded. Yes, none of this would ever happen. Much of it isn't even physically possible. And yet, here I am. It looks real. It feels real. I believe that I'm there. I don't really want to leave. From graphics to physics, Driveclub is a passion for cars methodically adapted from emotion to video game, and in my opinion, the smartest balance of sim and arcade there has ever been. Doesn't it make you wonder why it's dead? Every racer with licensed cars is doomed to be delisted someday, but Driveclub is really dead. The franchise is over, the developer's history, the servers closed. If we're going to find out what killed this game, the first place to look will be its failures. Driveclub is difficult, and to achieve its vision, there were sacrifices. Being distracted by beauty is one thing, being literally blinded by it is another. If you're in a fast car and you don't know the exact nature of the turn coming up, getting flashbanged by the lighting system flips a coin. The cost of beauty is heavy, and to be unmatched, Driveclub would have to be locked to 30 FPS. It is still unmatched, and it never claimed to be a sim. But it is difficult, and as responsive as the controls may be, nothing can change the effect of 30 FPS on precision. A clean lap is a big ask with roads this thin and AI this barbaric. There are hot laps where the difference between the top star and the middle is hardly visible to the naked eye. There are times like the Venom GT trials that I think, boy, a nice red paint job with pink and white flakes sure would look good on my car. And boy, that toaster sure does look like a great bath toy. And boy, maybe 30 FPS was kind of a big sacrifice. So it comes as a great surprise that the trend of Driveclub's failures has no relation to its vision at all. The unifying factor behind everything else this game gets wrong is inconsistency. In Driveclub, difficulty is influenced by 5 factors. The AI difficulty setting, easy, medium, hard. The pre-event car choice uniquely selected by the devs for each event where stats influence potential performance. And then the difficulty of handling the chosen car, or in other words, how hard it is to meet that potential. The Koenigsegg is a beast, but it is tough to tame. Next, there is the relative difficulty of the star boundaries, and finally, the mood of the penalty system on that race. AI difficulty is in your hands. The handling of the cars follows a well-oiled difficulty curve that progresses you through hot hatches to hypercars over the course of the tour, which means the problem lies with the other 3, and begins, like everything, with the stars. The difficulty any given star proposes varies wildly, second only to the Venom's brawl. The Norwegian Open has the gall to break your balls, but if I recall, it's one of the first fucking events. Time limits on a point-to-point are usually trivial. Time limits on lapped races are sure as hell not. And at its toughest, the car select screen can be the difference between having a fighting chance and hopelessness. One race you can get by in the car you like. The next, you take the best stats or you get smoked. This is small in Japan in the fastest choice you're given. This is small in Japan in the second fastest. 5 attempts of a Canada hot lap in the Maserati fail. 1 in the GTR demolishes it. When Driveclub's star boundaries inconsistently decide to visit their interstellar cousins or nosedive to triviality, a car choice will inconsistently allow player freedom or become a gun to your head. Convenient, because there'll be times in Driveclub you'll ask for the bullet. I'll put it simply, this is the most incompetent penalty system I have ever seen. In a game with Driveclub's mechanical field, cutting corners should be disincentivized. Then, why does it let me cheat? But another time in the same race, when I fly off the track and become one with the tire wall, scold me for honestly failing. It isn't just inaccurate, it actually performs the opposite function for which it was designed. Driveclub will punish disaster with further consequence, but let shameless infractions slip by. If I spin out, that was the punishment. That's why it's called racing, not spinning. I've got a fucking kidney in low Earth orbit. But the horror of my crashes are made comedic by a dominatrix penalty system, TKOing my already pureed balls into a 5th state of matter. And collision penalties, they're no smarter. Penalty. Nothing. Penalty. Nothing. Penalty. Nothing. Inconsistent, but it's worse than that, because of how Driveclub handles violence. You wanna lose or you wanna fight? We get dirty so our time stays clean. There is no tactic more reliable or effective. It's Super GT's vision of hell. Every one is a rammer and every corner is turn 1 on Monza. This isn't a track racer. The cars are wide, the roads are thin, the AI is barbaric. Don't expect them to play along if you want to be a pacifist. And if you can't adjust to that, this is the deal breaker. But it doesn't matter who you are or what you like. the penalty system takes no prisoners. If sometimes violence is overwhelmingly rewarding, but other times it's disastrously punishing, how could I not be frustrated when the coin flip doesn't go my way? Driveclub goads you into violence and inconsistently punishes it. Sometimes it allows you to cheat, but other times it spits in the wound of failure. And now you have seen the face of Driveclub's flaws. Its beauty can be blinding. Its scattered difficulty can force car choices, and the penalties are fucked up beyond all recognition. Not insignificant, and yet no match for the scale of the game's qualities. We saw problems, but no murder weapon. It must be somewhere else, like backwards in time, because here's a twist. If I reviewed this game 7 years ago, you might not be so impressed. Today, we don't have to worry about a car list or running out of things to do, but there's a reason Driveclub's perfectly paced tour doesn't include Japan or a single race with weather, because when it was released, Driveclub didn't have them. It didn't have functional servers. It didn't even have the same physics system. Today we have 3. Switch on hardcore handling from the menu, or just leave the cars behind for Driveclub Bikes. Its first, only, and now dead paid expansion. 7 years later, we have the privilege of playing the Snyder Cut on the very same disc. Games Radar called it arguably the finest collection of post-release content gaming has ever seen, but the black mark of its launch would never go away, and much of the blame lied with its USP. Driveclub was not called Pretty Screenshots Vroom Vroom Game. Unfortunately, it was called Driveclub. 1 part drive, 1 part club. And with only minutes left, I have still yet to mention it, because the clubs are that insignificant. It was nice that you could join a clan. It was nice that you could seamlessly face off with other players' scores in events, but this would not be a significantly worse game without it. It wouldn't even be significantly different. Yet, this was the feature Driveclub was sold on, named after, and delayed for. A PS4 launch title originally, Driveclub was pushed back over a year for the sake of a pseudo-social media system they called the Dynamic Menu, a truly innovative, socially connected experience that would surpass expectations. Sony worldwide boss Shuhei Yoshida promised in the delay announcement, "You set expectations, you're meant to live up to them." And when Driveclub finally launched, the servers didn't even work. The brand name carried an identity crisis. The launch was embarrassing for everyone involved, but the case is not yet closed. Driveclub sold 2 million copies. It's the most widely played racer on the PS4 by an estimated 4 million. Unlike Split Second and Blur, Driveclub was a success, but it suffered the same fate. There was another factor at play. In 2016, the year of Evolution's closure, Sony were recovering from a severe economic stagnation, as ground was lost to competitors in nearly all of their diverse markets. Buildings were sold, branches, and perhaps connected was a restructuring of their European studios. Guerrilla Cambridge and SCE London studio, like Evolution, suffered massive redundancies. EA do worse with no pressure at all. Optimizing profits is as much of a motive as survival is. So perhaps the answer is simple, obscured by lacking transparency. Perhaps Sony lacked faith in Evolution and their franchise. Perhaps they didn't need another Gran Turismo. Perhaps Driveclub was more trouble than it was worth. But whatever dealt the blow, now Driveclub is dead for good. There's no rabbit to pull out of a magic hat. There is no community of loyal fans that resurrected the corpse of its connectivity with a necromancy of LAN. Not because no one cares, but because no one could. PlayStation exclusivity ties its fate to Sony forever, and if it cannot be pirated, time is running out. A physical copy is the only option left. Its discs, its memory, and its legacy are all that lives on. Driveclub director Paul Rashinsky, joined by the redundant staff of Evolution, would next go on to produce a spiritual successor to MotorStorm. Onrush, had you heard of it? Not likely. Onrush was a failure, and Rashinsky's next project wouldn't fare much better. Project Cars 3. People in the know seemed excited. The man behind Driveclub was back. But so was David Kirk, Tim Shepard, Nick and Chris Pope, the physics and audio engineers who worked at Evolution. A quote from Push Square's review. Project Cars 3 takes inspiration from all over the place, but it's perhaps most closely aligned with Sony's own Driveclub. It would seem then that the PS4 cycle is ending the way it began. Project Cars 3 is infamous for betraying the series' legacy and graphically resembling a mobile game. It looks like it released 6 years before Driveclub, not 6 years after. There is no happy ending. Except for this one. Gran Turismo Sport is far from perfect and thinly focuses on a singular experience. Project Cars betrays itself. Motorsport 7 was a disappointment. Gotham is gone. This slice of the genre is troubled, and Driveclub was to be its next generation 7 years ago. But even in death, it feels like the next generation today. What are you waiting for? GT7? Forza 8? Driveclub can be here now. And how fast do I want to go? The truth is, I don't care, as long as it's in Driveclub. The dynamic menu is dead, but its concept has never been more alive. A car hardly needs a hub of seamless connection, but a person lives in the year 2021. Squarespace can offer you a nexus of net, a robust assembly of blogs, stores, member-exclusive content, newsletters, and social media updates. Squarespace can be your bio and your profile picture, but not for one site, for all of them. And you can construct it by hand with tools as capable as they are simple. In 30 minutes with Squarespace's crisp and diverse presets, you have a strong start. In an hour, it can be personalized with theme colors, the structure of placement, and stylish text. Risk-free. You won't need any card details until you're ready to publish, when you can use code Whitelight for 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Special thanks go out to No, G-Series, Alan Song, Alex Graft, Austin Novosel, Bishop Nelson, Chase Baker, Chino, Diseased, Duncan Austin, Effectfully, Elijah Hayden, Fernando Marquez, Gurneil, I Know Lucky, JD, John Lemley, Caleb Doss, Kendra Hatake, Lex Williams, Al Hudson, Linus Newman, Mr. T with some T, Newts, William Vossler, Warthol, Fabian Flack, Soren66, Dubstep Gutterfan 92, Bloth, Darren Chambers, Abby, Adam Abawella, Addison Martin, AJ Sharp, Andre Baltuta, Angelic Padawan, Attila, Blue Eyes White Idiot, Bosian22, Brandon Harris, Brendan McDonald, Cale Quinn, Chance Tucker, Crystal, Christopher Richardson, Combat Wombat, Cyril Bensimon, Dan Walker, Dave W, Devontae Williams, Dominic Jaworski, Drop ZZ, Eli Weaver, George Fitzboodle, Gwyneth, Gerald, Hamish, Hypocrite, Holy Shift, Hussar Master, I Pay My Camgirl, So Why Not You, Jake Dunnigan, Jake and Tipton, JD Sol, Joseph, Josephius, Joshua W. Schreiner, Justin, Caleb Bryan, Laser Crystal, Leon Katendal, Yubamir Mitkov, Matophobia, Nathan, Navy Husky, Nines, Norman Broys, Sai, Rackin Hock, Sad Cabbage, Shad Stout, Shade, Tax One Cab, That's for the Birds, The Last Great Opium Den, Trending Tech, Uriara Heap, Vertigious, Vladimir Obakov, ZZZZZ, 2468, DJ, Emilio Genesio, Glorious Sexy Beast, Joe Simmons, and Jubba Jeroni.